You're listening to Hearing the Silence of a Convicted Mind. I'm Chameleon. I don't chase noise, I study silence. Let's listen carefully. The case was closed. The sentence was final. But the language didn't stop. When a convicted mind speaks, most people listen for regret. I listen for rehearsal. This episode looks at one composite profile. Not a person, but a pattern. He's a mid-level inmate convicted on a non-public, non-graphic composite offense. The conviction is complete. Appeals exhausted. What prompted review were routine calls and a persistent linguistic oddity, conditional language repeated across contexts, across months. Why review these calls? They're part of a behavioral file used to assess adaptive risk and communication patterns. What felt off was not a threat, nor an admission. It was structure, the steady return to if, when, maybe, and what if, as if the speaker was rehearsing futures rather than recounting past. Analysis A, the language shift. He wasn't speaking in past tense. He was rehearsing possibility. Word repetition became a scaffold. If you, if we, if that happens. Clauses stacked like test steps. Future-oriented phrasing shows intent construction, not memory recall. Notice how agency shifts. If you could moves responsibility outward. If I could rehearses obligation inward. Both create actionable mental maps without committing to action. He repeated qualifiers. Maybe functioned as cover, when functioned as scheduling. Repetition is a rehearsal technique. It reduces cognitive load when an idea moves from possibility to plan. That shift matters. Rehearsal sounds like conversation. It looks like musing, but it builds decision trees. Analysis B, the silence within the conditional. Conditional language creates spaces. Those spaces are not empty. They're timed. There's a pause before the if clause, a held breath before the proposal, a micro silence after a hypothetical, as if the speaker is waiting for agreement that never needs to be explicit. Silence has pattern. In the calls I reviewed, pauses preceded keywords, names, times, small favors. Breath changes communicated emotional neutrality, not anger, not distress, a flatness that masks intent. That flatness matters. It limits cues that would normally reveal genuine uncertainty. Instead, the silence reads like calibration. The pattern often looks like pause, qualifier, tentative offer, pause, small ask. Example phrasing might be, maybe, if it's possible, could you, grammatically harmless, practically telling. Those pauses let the listener fill in intent. That feeling is useful to someone who wants a response without writing instructions. Analysis C, the manipulation embedded. Conditionals are compliance tests. Small requests probe boundaries. If you can, drop this at the address. The clause preserves deniability. I only said if. But behaviorally, it maps an expectation. The listener has to imagine the possibility and then either accept or reject it. Each acceptance reduces friction for larger asks later. Inside incarceration, influence operates through constrained networks. Conditionals let someone test trustworthiness and operational capacity without explicit instruction. The calls showed incremental escalation, tiny favors, then conditional logistics, then deferred obligations, all framed as hypotheticals, all sustainable as just talking if challenged. Zooming out, escalation insight, conviction closes cases. It does not end cognition. Incarceration restricts movement, not strategy. Some offenders adapt socially. They move from direct commands to conditional scaffolding. Conditionals become ongoing decision trees that operate quietly over years. This pattern has consequences for monitoring and risk assessment. Look for recurrence, the same hypothetical phrasing across contexts. Look for embedded contingencies. If you do X, then Y. And look for compliance tests disguised as musings. Those are predictive markers, not accusations. They help prioritize further review. The chilling realization. Maybe he wasn't reacting. Maybe he'd already rehearsed this phase. A series of hypotheticals can be a script. Practiced responses, calibrated tone, predictable pauses. They leave traces that trained listening can detect. A pattern never disappears, it adapts. Controlled close. Conviction closes cases. It doesn't always close patterns. Silence has patterns. If you listen the way I do, what you don't hear becomes evidence. Is the truth in what is said? Subscribe for more analytic listening. Each episode focuses on anonymized, evidence-based markers you can use to detect adaptive cognition and manipulation after conviction. Listen carefully. Silence always says something. Incarceration restricts movement. It does not restrict cognition. Some minds adapt. That's what I heard.
They call it manipulation. Sometimes, it's adaptation to constant observation. Because when you know someone's always listening, you learn how to speak without saying everything.